It's like the
All
first time
right.
it's cut out in like probably 2 weeks too.
Yeah, man, we were doing great. We were doing great. Anyway, welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by Awesemo.com. Dave Lochran and Adam Shar, better known as Ship My Modem DFS. Yeah, if you're wondering why we got some problems, no one need guess. You know why. You know why. But it's a 3-game slate. So what are we gonna do, right? We got plenty of time. Yeah, 15 minutes per game. I think we're all right, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know. It might take a long time on some of these. They're really appealing games too.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Oh God. Anyway, all right. Let's get it moving. We did the earlier show today, by the way. The process show or the strategy show. Welcome everyone, by the way. Glad to have you here. First sports talk. God, I love you, Laffy. I love you too, bro. Thanks for being here with us. We love all you guys. Um, shit, man. You see one total go from 216 to 212.5 with CJ McCollum rolled out. Uh, Jazz are 1 point favorites, 215 total. Boston's a 13.5 point favorite, 218 total. Portland by 13. So you got 3 games, 2 teams, 13 plus point favorites, and the other game has 2 teams playing in the bottom 5 pace. Now, one more thing. Every team on this slate is playing at least in the bottom half of the league in terms of pace. The Knicks are 16th, the Blazers are 17th, the Celtics or the Jazz are 21st, the Celtics are 22nd, the Rockets are 29th. Who am I missing? The Suns are 19th. I mean, this is going to be one hell of a night.
Yeah, what could go wrong? Two 13 game or two 13 point spreads and a bunch of really unappealing games. Should be a lot of fun.
All right. And we've got the Titans and Jaguars tonight to cap it off. So this is going to be sweet. And by the
Yeah.
way, yes, I'm going to be talking about that as well. Three Fellas Talking Football is coming on around 7:30. Tune into that. If you're watching live before lock, tune in afterwards. We'll recap everything leading up to kickoff. So yeah, just a slew of disgusting games on Thursday night, Adam.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a really fun one planned if you have to talk about that god awful football game also.
Yeah, it's not going to be it's not going to be enjoyable. Um, there's a dude, guess what the total on that game is?
Jags and Titans,
Yeah,
38.
37 and a half. 37 and a half. Are you kidding me? Oh, all right. I've been trying to postpone the torture as long as possible. What do you say we get into it here?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Boston, New York Knicks. We've got the Celtics 13-point favorites at home inside TD Garden. It's still TD Garden, I think. The 218 total. Yes, this is the highest projected scoring game of the night, but also the biggest projected blowout of the night. We've got three guys above 9K on DraftKings. It's from highest to lowest: Harden, Lillard, Irving, all of whom are in different games, which makes it kind of interesting. And then 5 above 9K on FanDuel: Harden, Lillard, Gobert, Capella, and Irving. So Irving really the only player in this entire game, Adam, that is priced up. There's really nobody else in this game outside of, if you want to say, Jason Tatum, who I get it was 7,100 on DraftKings and FanDuel. No one else is really expensive at all outside of Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, not at all. The only concern really is, can the Knicks keep pace with the Celtics here? But in the context of the slate, that doesn't really matter. So, I think Kyrie is one of the more appealing plays on the slate. Obviously Damian Lillard's value went up a bit, and we'll talk about that. But, Kyrie at $9,000 on both sites. On FanDuel, that's a really, really nice price tag. And then on DraftKings, there's plenty of upside there as well. You're talking about a Knicks team now that Frank Ntilikina hasn't even been in the rotation. He's like the only guy in their backcourt that's capable of playing defense, and he's just so bad at offense that he's still not playing. So really nothing to be concerned with here for Irving. And, obviously there's blowout risks, but we talk about it a lot on these shorter slates. raw points matter more than point per dollar. Like there's only so many guys that can get you 50 plus fantasy points. So if you get 45 or 50 from Kyrie, even if you would have scored 65 if it stays close, you're still in a pretty good spot there. So really love Kyrie. Don't have an issue with guys like Tatum or Horford, even Gordon Hayward, especially on FanDuel at just a god awful small forward position. I think is fine. Jaylen Brown's underpriced, but Kyrie's the guy that I really love from the Boston side.
Yeah, me too. We don't really need to get too far into Kyrie Irving. I think we both understand what's going on here. He's pretty elite. I mean, the peripherals aren't always there, but actually this season we've been seeing a whole lot of it, man. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Irving this year for a couple of reasons. You know, he's not like your Donovan Mitchell type because he's averaging 6.5 dimes per game. This is the most assists he's ever averaged. No one's talking about that either. Like, yeah, when he started off in Cleveland before LeBron returned, he was averaging right around 6 per game. But Irving's assist totals and rebound totals this year, he's averaging one full rebound more than he's ever averaged in his career per game. And he's averaging about a half an additional assist per game than his career best, which was back in 2013. So, yeah, he's averaging 22 points, less than the 24 and 25 we've seen him average in each of the last 2 years. But the guy's still capable of going for 35, 40 points anyway. He's also averaging a career high 1.7 steals. So you look at Kyrie Irving's game, or Kyrie Irving's season so far, not just from a scoring standpoint, but in whole, and factor in his 29.5% usage rate and 35% assist rate. This dude is 100% viable at 9,000. He's not overpriced against the Knicks team that's just terrible. I don't know. I'm loving what we're seeing from Irving this year. I don't think he's getting enough attention.
No, I agree with you. And we've also seen over the last month or so him be more involved offensively. Obviously was one of their main scorer anyway. But over the last month, a 32% usage rate for Kyrie Irving, 36% assist percentage as well. So, just trending in the right direction. And it makes sense because you did have him kind of off to a slow start coming back from injury at the beginning of the season. So it makes sense. And it's just, a very, very appealing spot for Kyrie. Maybe goes, as overlooked as he possibly can on a 3-game slate too, because of the CJ McCollum news.
Right. And then outside of that, you've got somebody like Gordon Hayward, who definitely came on in a big way last time out. Really the first time this season. The first time this season that we've seen a really solid game from Gordon Hayward. He was flirting with triple-double numbers there. Really solid game. Over his last 3 games, he's played, let's see here. He's played 30, 24, and 23 minutes. So that's 77 minutes. It is interesting to me, though, Adam, that 38 of those minutes, I'm just using his last 3 games because we're starting to see the team change a little bit. They're starting to play better. They've won 3 straight. He's played 50%, 49.4% of his minutes with Irving off the court over those 3 games. To me, that is kind of interesting because if I am going to play Gordon Hayward, I want to know that at least some of his minutes, and preferably around half, like we're seeing, are coming with Irving off the floor.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing that really stands out to me, even if you look at Hayward's numbers over the last month, the usage still isn't very high at 18.7%, but a 22% assist percentage. And that is a result, I would think, of not playing a lot of his minutes with Kyrie Irving. Obviously, ball in his hands more, being able to act as a facilitator more, makes up for him not being on a team like Utah where he has to be the main guy offensively. So, I do like Hayward here, especially when you factor in just how bad that position is today.
Yeah, and he has a 23.3% usage rate of his last 3 with Irving off the floor. Those aren't bad numbers at all. At that price tag, you're not going to complain about that. It's perfectly fine. His per minute production is at 1.25 there. Now, granted, 1 game's going to make a lot of difference, but you're also seeing Terry Rozier he's running with Hayward's running with the second unit a lot. And the reason I say this, if you look at just these last 3, and then we can move on, Terry Rozier has played all 38 of those minutes with Hayward that he's been on there without Kyrie. So every minute that Hayward's played without Kyrie, Terry Rozier has been out there. So it's what the reason I say that is this isn't just, trying things out. We're clearly seeing Brad Stevens have a way of doing things where, 45-50% of Hayward's minutes are going to be with this second unit or with with Kyrie off the floor to stagger the offense. So I like that. It helps him quite a bit. And if there's somebody else here that I do like from Boston, it is going to be Gordon Hayward. Uh, Obviously, Al Horford's in the conversation. Even on a 3-game slate, those centers kind of deep. What do you make of Al Horford here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. I certainly prefer him on DraftKings to FanDuel, where he's a power forward. The forward position is, I think, pretty easily the weakest on the slate. We'll see as we go through this show that we're getting excited to talk about Evan Turner playing an extra few minutes without McCollum and things
That
like
makes
that.
me sick to my stomach.
Right. So I think that on DraftKings, it's more appealing that you can roster Horford there. It makes him a very good DraftKings play. On FanDuel, even for a 3-game slate, there's opportunity cost because you have DeAndre Ayton, you have Nurkic, you have Capella, you have Gobert, you have even Enes Kanter on the other side of this game. It's like the one position on the slate that's still just jam packed.
Yeah, I agree. Sean says, if you missed the Hayward explosion, you missed it. Don't chase.
Hayward will never have a good game again. That is for
Right.
sure.
Makes sense.
There's one thing based on watching Gordon Hayward play basketball throughout his career, it's that he isn't very good.
Yeah, and it's not a 3-game slate. So I don't know. What are you gonna do? Um, I look at this and I see. Oh, and I think Ricky said who else will be out there, referring to me talking about Rozier playing all of his minutes with Hayward out there. Uh, right? Yeah, it would obviously be Rozier, or I don't know if you throw Smart out there. Excuse me. I guess what I'm saying though is that when you look at the minutes that he's playing with other players, it's been consistent over the last 3 games with exactly who he's playing with. Uh, and it tells me that Brad Stevens is beginning to, or not even beginning to, but staggering minutes. Because if Hayward's on the floor with Irving for like 90% of his minutes, I don't really have any interest at all. Irving just does so much. And Hayward in Utah was somebody that gave you value as a facilitator as well. So I want that. Anything else for Boston here?
Jaylen Brown, not on a minutes restriction, but he is still coming off the bench. So don't really know what that means, but I do think it takes shine off of Brown. It gives a few more minutes to Marcus Smart. But I still think that Irving, Hayward are the top two in that order. Then Horford on DraftKings and Tatum on FanDuel.
All right. Now with the Knicks, you have a couple guys that are actually very reasonably priced. Tim Hardaway is probably going to be reasonably popular. Enes Kanter, 6,800 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Kanter's weighing in at 71, so also pretty reasonable. And of course, Moutier with Trey Burke out. His price is beginning to rise, though, 5,700. He has played 36 minutes in back-to-back games, though. That's kind of interesting. 57 on FanDuel as well. Let's go and Vonleh, of course, 5,100 on FanDuel at a bad power forward position. Sorry, 5,000 flat, 51 on DraftKings. Let's talk about this Knicks team. Clearly a bad matchup, facing a Boston squad that, despite not being great offensively this year, still has a top defense. Over the last month, they're still a top 7 defense. Over the last month, they still play at a bottom 5 pace or bottom 10 pace. So it's not the greatest spot for the Knicks, but I go back to this again. It's a 3-game slate, so we have to talk about it.
Right. It's a 3-game slate, and it's the Knicks. So keep in mind that we can't really have a ton of confidence in a whole lot that we say here. Outside of that, Tim Hardaway should play a bunch of minutes. He's been in that 36-minute range in competitive games all season long. Tough matchup for him, but he is the kind of guy where you at least know that the volume is going to be there, so he has upside. Noah Vonleh has not been as good as he was in those first 3 games as a starter, which I think was predictable. There's no reason for him to have been that dominant when he's playing alongside Enes Kanter. He's playing most of his minutes at the 4 in a position that, causes him to lose rebounding opportunities. And he's not a high volume player anyway. So I don't think it's surprising that his production's come down. but we know that he still has that kind of upside. And he's one of the more important pieces to the Knicks as far as actual basketball goes, in that he's a capable defender, he's a capable passer, and he can actually space the floor a bit. So he provides value, and there's a reason that he plays bigger minutes than a lot of these guys more consistently, as long as he's not in foul trouble. So the minutes are nice. It's a weak position. He doesn't project super well, but I think that since the upside's there and the position sucks, I'll still end up with a decent amount of him. Moutier is whatever, the minutes are there. I have no faith in him. Cantor is interesting, I think, more so on DraftKings. He only played 26 minutes last game against the Wizards. We did see Noah Vonleh get some run at the 5, in addition to the Mitch Robinson minutes that we expected. Um, Not sure if that continues. We've kind of seen that come and go, but I think that for tournament purposes, projecting Cantor for around 32 minutes is fine, and it doesn't really matter for cash games because he's just not someone that you should really be getting to in cash games.
That was really frustrating against Washington, man. He was crushing him. It was 1.55 fantasy points per minute, right? Like, am I saying that he would have maintained that throughout 33 minutes? No, maybe not, but he still would have. Like, he dropped 38.5 fantasy points in 25 minutes. He had a third. Remember, we said it was possible that he could have a 20-20 game. Well, 13 and 16 in 25 minutes. I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, he was getting there, but he was definitely on his way to a really solid game. If he were to have played 33 minutes, you're getting a monster effort from him. The problem is now he's played 26, 27, and 25 over his last 3. One of them was a huge blowout loss to the Sixers. One was a win in overtime over Milwaukee, and one was a 3-point competitive loss to Washington. I don't know exactly what to make of his minutes right now, Adam. I guess the only thing here is that you have Mitchell Robinson, who's played 17, 20, and 14 minutes over the last 3. You had Vonleh, who you were talking about, who has been in some foul trouble, but last 2 played 35 and 31 minutes. How often, because I know you wrote the deep dive today, which means I'm positive you looked heavily into this rotation, heavier than I did. Um, what Who's getting Cantor's minutes in these games where he plays 25? Is it one player or is it a few guys and it's not the same each night?
You're right. So Robinson clearly is the backup to him,
Of
but in the
course,
game,
but those don't equal 48 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, last game Vonleh got some time at the 5. The game before that, I'm not even really factoring it in because even though it went to overtime and was obviously a competitive game, talking about the one against Milwaukee, Giannis closed at the 5 for the Bucks. Cantor came out basically as soon as Brook Lopez did,
Okay.
and they went with, I think it was Vonleh at the 5. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember that Giannis. The game went really small to where you wouldn't expect Cantor to play. Like you and I were surprised that we didn't think that Markieff Morris would, get Cantor off the floor. Giannis is 100% of the time going to get Cantor off the floor.
Unquestionably, yes. Yeah, that. But what the weird thing to me is that getting Cantor off the floor like your Markieff Morris, is it worth? I mean, when Cantor's not out there, you don't. I know Vonleh's had some good rebounding games, but you don't have a great rebounding team. Cantor is easily your best rebounder and your best big man, your best offensive big. His defense is clearly a liability, but at this point, I think it's difficult to really predict what we're going to get out of him. As you mentioned on DraftKings, he's still more appealing. You can play 2 centers here. It's still a decent price point. And if there's one spot where Boston can struggle at times, it's against bigger traditional centers that aren't getting yanked off the court because they can't hang. So I think this is a decent spot. Boston's a little undersized in their front court. Just before we move on, what's your final take on a guy like Tim Hardaway? Because our ownership projections on Hardaway earlier today had him at 33% on DraftKings. I don't think we've seen. Let me see what the update is. But what are your while I pull this up? What are your thoughts on Hardaway? Your final thoughts? Where you're going with him?
If I end up with him in lineups, that's fine because he has upside. But if he were to be 33 to 35% owned, I think I would probably end up coming in under the field just because I have him as a good but not great play. I think that there are other guys I would end up having a little bit more of and having a little bit less Hardaway if that's the case.
All right. The truth is that if this was, say, a 7-game slate, I don't even care what teams. Pull them out of a hat. Hand select the matchups for me. I can pretty much assure you that if you did that and added 4 games, that 2 of the games on this slate, and outside of Evan Turner and I guess Lillard, and maybe Nurkic. So basically 2 games on this slate, I would have virtually zero interest in at all. Maybe Clint Capella, and we'll talk about him. I think Capella is a very interesting play. But these 2 games are just ugly, man.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely an ugly slate. And looking at like shooting guard on FanDuel, where obviously you have to roster 2 guys, and it's a bad position, especially because of the pricing. But I still think I would lean toward Donovan Mitchell for 8,500 if I can find the money. If I can't, then Hardaway is a perfectly fine consolation prize. But then you also can just like punt the second spot with Nick Stauskas. So yeah, it's with Hardaway. Like I'll probably have more on FanDuel than on DraftKings just because of how roster construction breaks out. But it's certainly not someone that I'm excited about having in my lineups.
All right, fair enough. A lot of comments in chat about if you play this guy, you must hate money or you must like to lose. Just there's only 3 games. You can't like if you're playing one lineup, then I think I understand where you're coming from. But if you're talking with someone that has 150 lineups and you end up with, I don't know, 10% of a player that might not be your favorite guy, well, there's only so many players that you can target on this slate. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Let's move on. Portland and Phoenix. The Portland Trailblazers are 13-point favorites here, 212.5 total. By the way, thank you, fellas. The projections have been updated for ownership, and now Hardaway came down from 33% to 23%. Right now, Yusuf Nurkic coming in as the highest, right above Evan Turner. I still think Turner's the highest owned player on this slate. What about you?
Yeah, I mean that's my guess as well, especially because of the position that he plays.
It's a shame. I really wanted to load up on Lillard because his projected ownership and what I expected to be a lot lower earlier in the day before McCollum was ruled out. I was hoping that McCollum would still be questionable going into lock because I liked Lillard anyway, and I liked that he was priced up a little bit because he was kind of in no man's land below Harden and above Irving. Granted, I like Irving too, but Irving and Lillard are very similar players, both capable of putting up huge games in any given night. And Damian Lillard has a premier matchup here. He's got either Elie Okobo or DeAnthony Melton. This is going to be a bloodbath, man. You're talking about a Phoenix backcourt that has just been they're terrible. They scored 9 points in the first quarter the other day. They're really bad. I don't know. They don't have any. Mikal Bridges went on a 5-game stretch where he made exactly 1 field goal. He's been bad. Like and Josh Jackson, you're just closing your eyes, crossing your fingers, and praying to God that he doesn't suck. It's a bad basketball team. I like Lillard quite a bit. Obviously, Evan Turner, Yusuf Nurkic, but the blowout concern is real. I will say this much: on a slate like this, I'm not even going to factor it in if it comes with the. I just can't. I can't factor it in. I have to play them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach there is, for one, I don't care about the blowouts because raw points are raw points. If if every game blows out, it's just a low scoring night. Like you can't just fade every game. And so raw points are raw points, but you can also combat that by just trying to maybe pair guys more frequently than you would on a full slate. If you're playing in lineups where you have a guy from the Knicks, maybe pair him. Those should be a high percentage of the lineups where you have Kyrie Irving. I don't think you need someone from the Knicks every time you have Irving, just because there are so many bodies, and the same goes here. Like you don't need someone from Phoenix every time you have Damian Lillard, but where you do have someone from Phoenix, you should probably have like Lillard or Nurkic or something in those lineups on the off chance that your Phoenix guy goes off and the game stays close. Like why would you want to have your Lillard spread amongst your other lineups, but not those lineups?
Right, exactly. Right now, what do you have of Harden, Lillard, and Irving?
I lost my last crunch when my computer crashed right before the show, but I have Harden projected for like 7 more DraftKings points than Lillard.
Okay.
Obviously, price difference is a little different, but I actually still have Harden like ahead of Lillard.
Harden ahead of Lillard. Okay. Uh, yeah, I really like Lillard. It's to me, as you mentioned, raw points are raw points, blowouts are blowouts. They happen sometimes, they don't. With only 3 games, the truth is that with Lillard being $1,000 more than Irving on DraftKings, and this is kind of the way I'm seeing it. FanDuel's a bit different. He's 1,500 more, but on DraftKings, um, I still feel like I can make a fine lineup with Lillard, and I'm not really sacrificing that much more to get to him over Irving. So that's one of the factors that plays in here. Now, we talk about Evan Turner. He was already a guy that was going to have a little bit of ownership, given the fact that they're playing the Suns and we only have 3 games. Have you ever heard an Evan Turner interview, by the way?
No, I haven't.
You haven't. Chat, have you ever heard an Evan Turner interview? Let me know. This guy, I mean, no disrespect, ET, but he sounds like ET, like from the movie. It's the wildest. Yeah, it's something else. It's actually kind of Kermit the Frogish. It is something special. So when you're done, you just Google search Evan Turner interview. You will crack up. Anyway, he was Makad says he has the craziest voice. I know, man. It's wild. Everyone that comes through Philly, like Covington has a wild voice. But yeah, Evan Turner was already going to have some ownership. Now he's going to be wildly popular. And we had a good question in our Slack chat, which if you want to check out our Slack chat, you want to try out all of our premium content, you can do that and get an entire week free of charge. No strings attached, none of that. Just by using the promo code in the bottom right corner of the screen, Deeper Dive, all one word. So if you go to awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com, click on Join Now on the homepage and select the plan that you want to try out. And go to the checkout. You'll be prompted. All you do, enter Deeper Dive, one word. You get a free week free of charge, and you can check everything out. And you can become part of the Awesemo family. We'd be very happy to have you join us. So a question from Slack chat was from, where was it? Because it was a good one. Here it is. From Rabashua, I think. He said, do you come in over or under on Turner if he's truly going to be 52% owned on FanDuel? Now, I think he will be around that 50% mark, Adam. So let's assume that he's around that 50% mark. Do you want to match the field, come in below, come in over? Because it is such a short slate. If it was a bigger slate, normally it's like, no, it's Evan Turner. I'll come in way under. But what about with the special circumstances on this slate?
It's just really tough for me to come in under because of just how stupid this position is on this slate. I mean, so it's you can't just blindly look at ownership, obviously. And you look at this. You have Turner at 4,600 on FanDuel. You have to roster 2 of these guys. Hayward's fine. Ariza is fine, but again, they're both 1,200 and 1,800 more than Turner. Ingles is a lot more. Crowder even is $900 more. Mo Harkless, who would be the clear pivot off of Turner, like if something happens and Turner doesn't play 30 plus minutes,
sure,
it's Harkless. Harkless is $300 less. So you really need Harkless to be beating Turner a very high percentage of the time here for it to actually work out. Mikal Bridges is useless and more expensive than Turner. It's just there's no pivots. Like in my spreadsheet, I put in my projections, and then I have a formula to based on my projections figure out how often, what percentage of the time a player reaches the score that I would want in a tournament, and then I can try and get an idea of like what my maximum exposure to them would be based on how frequently that happens compared to other guys at their position. And I have Turner capped at 96%. Like if I just go by that and don't adjust anything. Just because I have him as that much better a play than everyone else, factoring in their price and everything else at that position. So I think coming in over 53% is probably actually the right thing to do, even though it feels really disgusting. It's just kind of a product of this slate.
Yeah, it in a strange, unfortunate way, it is. I want to get into some of the cheaper guys here, and we'll talk about them. But Kyle on our YouTube chat says CJ being out makes it less a chance of blowout. Blazers are playing bad right now too. Both of those comments are not necessarily incorrect. However, this Portland playing bad is nothing compared to this Phoenix team. Now, anything can happen on any given night. It's an 82 game season. I totally understand that. But the line actually only moved, I think, a half a point or 1 point without McCollum. Well, I guess what I'm saying, Adam, is, and I begrudgingly watched some of this Sacramento Phoenix game because I wanted to see how this team looked without. I should have known Booker and Warren, but this Suns team, like, say Booker's out for an extended period of time, this Suns team is going to be really, really bad.
Yeah, that's what happens when you are bad and then you lose Devin Booker.
Yeah, I mean, real bad. Like, no matter how bad another team's playing, I like the Hawks. I think could easily beat the Bookerless, Warrenless Suns. I'm not even kidding. I think they're that bad. So maybe I'm exaggerating, but you're talking about DeAndre Melton, DeAnthony Melton, and Elie Okobo and Jamal Crawford, right? Like, and you have DeAndre Ayton, but you mentioned the other day his defense has really struggled. Like, he's going to be a good player, but defensively, he's been just a swinging gate.
Yeah, I mean that's something he's really struggled at. He's been very good on the offensive end, but it has not translated to the defensive end. So I mean, Nurkic for me, 8,500 on FanDuel is fine. I have no issue getting there, but 7,300 on DraftKings, I expect him to be one of my highest owned players. Just because it's a spot that he should absolutely wreck, and there's nothing that I'm concerned about here with Nurkic. So, I love Nurkic. That's probably the easiest argument for me against Turner, especially on DraftKings, where there is more flexibility with roster spots. Is that there's a lot of Portland guys that I like, but I don't want like 4 of them per lineup. So if
Right.
Turner's going to be like 40% owned, it's easier to be like, okay, fine, I'll play Lillard, I'll play Aminu, I'll play Stauskas, whatever, and just hope that Turner underperforms. But on FanDuel, you don't even really have that option because you still have to play 2 of those other bad players.
Is it reasonable to say I like Lillard more than you do?
Yes, not to not to say that I dislike Lillard. So the interesting Lillard kind of reminds me of Brad Beal last night, where if you go back to last season and you run numbers without CJ McCollum on the floor, you're going to get like a 38% usage rate for Damian Lillard. But if you if you run those numbers with Yusuf Nurkic on the floor, to try and account for time that he's playing alongside another high usage player and for minutes that he's playing against the starting unit and not against some backup point guard, he drops from that 38% usage and 1.4 fantasy points per minute down to 31% usage and 1.18 fantasy points per minute. For context, when he plays with McCollum and Nurkic, it's 1.12 fantasy points per minute, 26.5% usage. So he gets a bump, but his per minute production hasn't really changed that much in this situation. But the bump in the usage and the bump in the assist percentage means that his ceiling is much higher.
Right.
Plus, he won't play 100% of his minutes with Nurkic. He will get time where it's just him. So I like Lillard a lot. It's that if we assume that he's really popular here, then I think that going to like Kyrie or Harden is perfectly fine.
Oh, no doubt. And I like all of them. I only ask because now basically we have Harden, Lillard, and Irving basically really all closely projected in ownership, like negligible differences. So since the start of last season, though, with Nurkic and Lillard on and McCollum off, I have Lillard at 1.26 fantasy points per minute. So were you just using this year's numbers?
No, last year, McCollum off, Lillard and Nurkic on.
Okay, I'm doing since the start of last year, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Huh. All right. Yeah, I was getting 1.26. You know what it is? Wowie has a CJ McCollum, which just CJ, and then a CJ McCollum with a C dot J dot. So I don't know which one is accurate. No
yeah.
joke.
I mean, we're also using different sites, so like
Right.
it could just be a data issue.
Either way, like you said, the ceiling is still very much there. We'll move on. We got to keep going here. What are your thoughts on Nurkic? Because once again, I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just talked about him for a minute, but I really like him. I think that 7,300 on DraftKings, I can't really ignore it. 28.7% usage in 306 minutes alongside Lillard without McCollum since last year. He actually hasn't been that productive on a per minute basis, just like 1.05 fantasy points per minute. But that increase in usage and the fact that his rebounding percentage is still up near 20%, and that he's playing better and more minutes consistently this season, I'm not concerned with what he's produced on a per minute basis over a 300-minute sample size.
I should have rephrased that. Keep it quick so we can keep going here. It's my fault. What are your thoughts on Nurkic compared to the other centers on this slate? Is what I meant to say.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite DraftKings center.
Okay.
On FanDuel, it's a little bit tougher because he's 8,500, and you have Capella at 91. You have DeAndre Ayton, I think, is my favorite on FanDuel at 67.
Okay. Now with Phoenix, we don't know who's starting yet at point guard. Melton started the second half. Elie Okobo started the first half and was terrible, so that didn't work. And they actually closed the game together in a blowout, which doesn't tell you much unless it's going to happen again. Maybe it will. Who knows? DeAndre Ayton's still cheap, but the big thing here, Adam, is he's not getting the blowout run anymore in the fourth quarter. We were getting like blowout proof Ayton, who is getting 6, 7, 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, no matter the score. That's not the case anymore. And that, in my opinion, is a big hit to his floor and ceiling.
Yeah, and I think that's what I expect to continue going forward also, because after that last game where he was, kind of disappointing, coach came out and said that he thinks Ayton's kind of hitting a rookie wall here and dealing with fatigue. So that is something to keep in mind. It's one reason why I like Nurkic quite a bit more on DraftKings, where they're similarly priced, is that, that's not something that's going to show up in projections when you're just, putting in minutes and rates, but that's something that, could be very real. We just saw Trae Young come out and say the same thing. So, that's a concern along with the blowout and everything else. It's just that on FanDuel, like, all the centers are jacked up in price except for Ayton is sitting at the same price tag as he is on DraftKings.
Right. What about the rest of this team? Josh Jackson, Melton Okobo, Jamal Crawford, go.
Josh Jackson's really appealing to me just because the power forward position is basically as bad, if not worse, than the small forward position today. So on FanDuel, where he's a power forward, I'm going to just suck it up and hope that he doesn't play like shit. Mikal Bridges, I really don't have interest in, especially on FanDuel at 4,900. On DraftKings at 4,100, it's still not super appealing just because, like, no matter who's on the floor, like, you can take Booker and Warren off, you're still talking about a guy with like a 15.5% usage rate that just is not doing anything offensively and is not producing for fantasy purposes. So you're basically just praying this guy runs into a game that he really just hasn't had yet. For Okobo and Melton, you mentioned them playing alongside each other at the end of that last game. No idea if that will be something we see more frequently, but for the sake of projecting this team out, I gave Melton a few minutes alongside of him just because there's no reason not to play these guys more. So I think that either one's fine. They come with a ton of risk. Neither one is super productive, but whichever starts, I think the plan would probably be for them to play 30 to 32 minutes, and whichever comes off the bench will probably be much lower owned, which makes them appealing in tournaments, since I fully expect this to be a hot hand situation.
So do I, 100%. So just roll the dice, take a shot. If it stays close, Jamal Crawford will get some run. If not, he's the first guy to get the axe. He'll play like 20, 21 minutes. And then with Josh Jackson, how much Jackson do you think you're going to have?
On FanDuel, probably close to 100%.
Yeah, I guess because it's just a terrible position. All right, and then finally, then we'll move on to the final game here. Not a whole lot of time. We get started late. But when we look at guys like Seth Curry and then the other kind of not good players, but players that are going to get some discussion, Sauce Castillo, a.k.a. Nick Stauskas. These guys, total toss-ups, but what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Stauskas should see around 28 minutes here. He's been pretty productive in his time.
More blowout run. If Evan Turner, he'll get a lot of blowout run if this game gets out of hand.
Yeah, I think his minutes are relatively safe in that regard too. He's been pretty productive without McCollum or Lillard on the floor, averaging about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute with a 19% usage rate. The problem is that when he played alongside Lillard this year, granted it's only like a 45-minute sample size, but he has a 9% usage rate. So this is 100% an instance where I think you see Stauskas' minutes creep up, but his per minute production takes a hit. At a minimum price tag on both sites, or $100 above minimum, I don't really care on this slate. It's just worth pointing out that you need to be careful. You can't just like project Stauskas to, go out there and score like 28 points or something.
I think the real move is, if you're playing a lot of lineups, do not, on a slate like this, don't get hooked on one dirt cheap guy. Mix it up a little bit, because outside of somebody like Evan Turner, you're just taking guesses, right? You're hoping that Melton will stay hot. You're hoping that Stauskas during the minutes that he gets will shoot well, because that's the only way you're going to get good production out of him. You're hoping that Seth Curry can do something. You're hoping Mikal Bridges doesn't shoot 1 of 6 again. It's really the case with all of them. And even with Mo Harkless, you're hoping that he's the one that has the bigger game over Turner if Turner happens to not. You know what
Every
I mean?
every single value play you're playing in your lineup tonight absolutely sucks and is very capable of disappointing. So if
Well
a lot
said.
of other people are playing him, don't be afraid to go to a different one.
All right. Well, I did want to let you guys know that we are doing the 24 days of giveaway on awesemo.com. And we're happy to tell you that for the next, every day leading up to Christmas Eve, we are going to be giving away something to all of our lovely, loyal, wonderful viewers. NFL packages, rest of the season NFL packages, other packages leading up till the 24th. And then on the 24th, we're going to be giving away on a random drawing a free all access premium annual package. So a full 365 days calendar year free package to everything behind the paywall at awesemo.com. And hopefully one of you fine fellas wins it. All you have to do is like this video and comment below. I don't have anything sexy, anything special. Although, by the way, your John Wall comments yesterday were funny as shit, man. I was dying reading them. One of them I can't even read on air, but it was awesome. So well done. Hit us with a like and then comment, and you will automatically be entered into it. And you can do that for any show throughout the day. So if you watch 4 of them and you like and comment below, not in the chat, but below on all of them, you're entered 4 times. So there you have it. Good luck to all of you, from us to you at awesemo.com. Okay, let's Ring Room's over here talking about Lonzo Ball. He had like 1 decent game and he scored 7 points or something, bro. Ease up, man. Pump
History
those
will
brakes.
view him as better than Ben Simmons.
What's that?
History will view Lonzo Ball as better than Ben Simmons.
All right, dude. We should end the show now. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I think Ben Simmons has way too many flaws, but Lonzo is a walking flaw. Okay. Utah and Houston. Here's the one projected close game. Utah by 1, 215.5 total. Go ahead, Adam.
This game is way more appealing than it should be because of the slate. I do think that it's actually a pretty nice spot for Houston, just because Utah isn't the same defensive team we've seen in the past. They still don't play fast, and they're still not, atrocious defensively. They're not the Spurs, but it's just not a stifling defense anymore. I think James Harden is cheap enough, especially priced down to below 11K on DraftKings, where especially if people aren't going to find that extra money because they love Lillard, I think Harden makes perfect sense there. And then on FanDuel, you have to roster the 2 shooting guards, and that's another just trash position. So I love getting the raw points from Harden there, even though it's not a super appealing matchup. Chris Paul too. Like, normally I don't like rostering him, but on this particular slate, I think the price tag is more than fair for him. Capella is my favorite guy, just because Gobert has really been getting beat at the rim this year, beat in general by anyone. Capella's price tags come up, but he's just playing 38 minutes a night in competitive games, averaging well over a fantasy point per minute. So it's pretty difficult for me not to like him.
Yeah, and you pointed out the pick and roll defense that Gobert has struggled with. I mean, you've talked about this not just today, but a lot of times. I wish we had the play type data on NBA.com. It kills me that we don't. Hopefully, according to John Schumann, it'll be back up soon. But it isn't yet, so that sucks. But my guess would be that this year, point per possession wise, Rudy Gobert has been crushed compared to his previous campaigns.
Yeah. Also, one guy to throw in that whole dumpster fire value conversation, PJ Tucker should play 34 to 36 minutes here at a cheap price tag. God knows what the hell he does with it, but we can say that about every value play on this slate.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
PJ Tucker.
Yeah, right. If you get 35, 40 minutes on a 3-game slate, you're not going to cry about it. Any interest in guys like Eric Gordon on FanDuel or DraftKings or for me, I'd probably just go cheap at shooting guard and hope that one of these other pure scorers can get hot and that Gordon doesn't. But is there anyone else on Houston?
No, I mean, that's where I'm at. If I get Gordon, I get Gordon. It's right. A 3-game slate. I'm not going to be like redoing lineups to not, but I'm not real excited.
All right. On the other side, we've got the Utah Jazz. Not a great team. Hey, by the way, I was looking up some numbers, and over the last month, believe it or not, despite their struggles, the Rockets ranked number 1 in offensive rating, 115.4 points per 100 possessions. So the offense is still putting points on the board. They just rank bottom 10 in defensive ratings. So I'm sorry, bottom 4 in defensive ratings. So that doesn't help. Uh, Utah here, I'll tell you straight up, I don't really have much interest in paying for Mitchell. It's not to say that, oh, Mitchell's crazy overpriced. On DraftKings, he isn't. He's 7,600. 85 on FanDuel, I have very little interest, even at a weak position. Maybe you have a different opinion there because it is a bad position. But I just keep leaning towards some of the higher priced guys, whether it be at center or Lillard or Harden, and Irving, and it's pulling me off of somebody like Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there with you. Like, I fully expect him to be probably the second highest scoring shooting guard on the slate, which makes him, appealing. But it's just that where you really are looking for shooting guard help, it's on FanDuel where he's $8,500, and it's tough to get there. On DraftKings, the price tag's more appealing, but you just have so many more options. So I don't dislike him. I think that he has still been playing like 6 to 8 minutes. Without Rubio on the floor too, which gives him a little bit more assist upside, which is nice, but certainly not someone I'm prioritizing. Same thing goes for Rubio. Same thing goes for this entire team.
You got nothing else on Utah, huh?
No, they're the team that probably is grading out the worst for me in terms of relative to their prices, especially on FanDuel.
All right. Rudy Gobert, I guess, is interesting, but at the same time, it's tough because there are so many good centers. And like you said, with everybody else, whether it's Jay Crowder or Derek Favors, um, or Jingles, all of those guys are kind of like just maybe you sprinkle in a few percent because you're limiting exposure to other players, but you're not prioritizing any of them. And you'd think in a game that's close with a 1 point spread that might be the case. But it just, I feel like there's not enough. There's not enough here to get me excited about the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I think the price tags are much more appealing on DraftKings. Like, you have Rubio at 6,400. You mentioned Mitchell's price, but still, kind of everyone's price tags are more appealing on DraftKings.
Agreed. Um, Gerald asked, "Can you do positions on the show?" We don't do that. We do it for in Slack for the premium subscribers. It's only fair, and I'd hope that everybody understands that we come on here and give out a lot of content and pretty much spill all of the information that we've gone through throughout the day, and we like to save some stuff for the premium members that are paying and deserve to have some of that information behind the paywall. So hopefully you understand that. If not, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, thanks as always for hanging out with us. Good luck tonight. Stick around live before lock with Chris and Eddie coming up next. And then, of course, three fellas talking football. Titans and Jags, baby. That's going to be fun. But who can avoid a good old showdown slate? Remember, comment below and like if you want to get entered into the Christmas giveaway, 24 days of giveaway. Or just hit us with a thumbs up because you like us. You think we're cool. You think our videos are great because we like you fellas too. Anyway, good luck. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive, a much better slate, I promise.